Hello, spirits. Hi, it's FuneraLady. Human name is Amy Silva Rigtrup. I'm so happy to see you all here. Sorry I was a few minutes late. Can everyone hear me okay? I see some friends here. Feels like romper room. Hello, Catherine and Heather and Kristen. Who else? Oh, Carrie's here, my banker friend. She has a great show about banking. I think it's Bank Smart with Carrie. Feel free to add your channel name. She's wonderful. Hi, Grammy. Grammy's here. Oh, in Florida, 80. I don't want to hear 86 degrees. We keep like yo-yoing back and forth between nice weather and not nice weather. Hello, everyone. Ben Rosa is here. So many friends. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching. Hello to the replay crew. I am a replay girly. There's so many shows I watch on YouTube and I hardly ever get to make it live. So I appreciate every single one of you watching on replay. I make it a point to respond and engage with every comment. So please feel free to send me questions, comments, anything. I'm also going to post my email. I have a FuneraLady email now. And FuneraLady alone was taken. So I'm FuneraLady OG because that's me. FuneraLadyOG@gmail.com. If you ever want to reach me privately, have a discussion, connect, any questions. I love questions. The weirder, the better. I do put the fun in funeral. Hello, Patio Menard, my ultimate protestosaurus. I made friends with Pat and her husband when I moved to Somerset, fighting the good fight against corruption and all the things. I've learned so much since moving to Somerset. Hello, hello, hello. So welcome today. I'm so glad to see you all. Happy Friday. I hope you're having a good week. On a personal front, I had really amazing news for myself yesterday. I met with a surgeon at Mass General that specializes in migraine surgery, and a friend of mine was treated very successfully by him and referred me. And meeting him, I don't know. I know there's lots of people I'm friends with and in my chat that understand what chronic illness is like and navigating the medical hurdles, the insurance. When you sit down with a doctor and they not only understand everything that you're going through, but they just see you, they want to help, and they're honest and they're realistic and they don't rush you. That's exactly what happened yesterday. And I have hope for the first time in a long time that my daily migraines are going to be improved. It might not be 100% right away. I might have to do 2 surgeries, but we're going to do a surgery this summer, and the recovery is not anything near as bad as half the surgeries I've had in my life. And yeah, he's confident he can help me, and even just a 20% improvement in my migraines, which have been daily. I get maybe 1 to 2 days off a month. Some months I get none. So this is going to give me so much of my life back, and I'm really happy. So anyway, that's my good news. My plan for today, like I said in the first show, part of what I want to share about is not just being a funeral director and all things about the funeral industry, but I want to share my own personal experience with grief and with funerals as a person, because I'd like people to feel comfortable also sharing these things. I want to hear from all of you what people that you've lost, people that you want to talk about, that you want to honor, your experiences with funerals, with eulogies, anything. I love to hear stories. That's one of the biggest benefits of being a funeral director are all of the eulogies and obituaries and stories we hear, but also we spend hours at arrangement meetings hearing so much. People share so much at pre-arrangements and at funeral arrangements. I mean, think of like like a spouse that just lost their spouse and they spent 50 years together. We hear so many stories about their lives growing up, one of 14 kids, all different cultures and traditions. These are all things that I want to share with you guys in all ways. So today I'm going to talk about my experience with essentially the first and biggest, most impactful family death that I experienced, which was the loss of my dad's mother. Her name was Mary Silva. She is who I get my height from for sure. And I was told most of my life that I look like her. And I never saw it. Like, it's hard when you're a kid to look at like your grandmother, who's an old lady, and be like, yeah, I see it. It wasn't until I was making her slideshow with my cousins while we were planning her funeral that I saw a picture of her getting ready on her wedding day. And that was the first picture of many. Like, I had seen random pictures of her when she was younger, but this was the first one that it felt like I was looking at myself. I'll show it to you now as a little preview. This is her. And this image here of her in the mirror, I just, I felt like it was me. I felt like it could be me. And the woman behind her, I mean, there's just so much family that I want to know. But this image just struck me right in the heart, and I got it. I got it. Why people think I look like her. So yeah, she's beautiful and she's awesome. So I'm gonna start from the beginning with my grandmother and go through that whole experience. And I'll leave it up to you guys if you want how much or how long you want me to share. And then the second half of the show, I want to talk to you about the entire experience of what goes into a first call and a funeral arrangement, because I plan to get into a lot of things, but mostly I want to talk about pre-arrangements. And I think you can't fully grasp the importance of pre-arrangements, not even just from a financial place, from a planning place, from a logistical place. You can't really understand how important pre-arrangements are until you know how much work and how much goes into actual funeral arrangements and what happens when someone dies at home or at a hospital or at a nursing home, how all these protocols work, so that you can see the benefits of a pre-arrangement and the benefits of having a relationship already built with a funeral director, a game plan, knowing what options you have. So my plan today is to start from the beginning, explain everything I can about what we call the first call, which means what happens from step one. When someone passes away, I'm going to tell you all the different common scenarios where deaths occur, what steps go into play with each of them, and then walk you through an entire arrangement, like listing off everything that we go through, regardless of what type of service that you have, so that you can see all of it. So that is my plan today. We'll see how long it takes. And let's see. Oh, just blame it on my wild, beautiful Melinda is here. Ah, so many awesome friends. Hello. Oh my God, twinsies. I love twinsies. Is twin mama here? Ah, oh, Mermaid Mary. I get to hang out with her all day Sunday. That was awesome. That was awesome. So yeah. Oh, what did we see? Let's put this up here. Catherine says, since my dad passed away, I find funeral planning interesting. All the random stupid questions I asked during the meeting. Thank goodness the, I'm guessing, director was my mom's friend and client. It makes such a difference when you have a relationship or a connection with the funeral director, whether you've known them for a while or have taken the time to have a phone call and pick the funeral home that you or the funeral director that you vibe with. It makes a huge difference. These are not easy things to go through, and meeting with someone that doesn't make you feel comfortable, that comes off as cold, that, I don't know, you will only ask the questions that matter, which are never weird or stupid, when you feel comfortable. And that is the first sign that you might be in the wrong place. If you don't feel like the person serving you is open to literally anything you could ever ask or want or need. Our job as all funeral directors, is to completely adapt to every need of every family that we serve, regardless of anything else, period. And if you're not feeling that level, whether they're a high cost funeral or a low cost funeral home, that does not matter. The human interaction should have that connection. And most funeral directors do have that care and compassion. So I urge you to, you know, check out the funeral directors in your area. A lot more are reaching out and doing a lot more of community engagement. Check if your local funeral homes are on Facebook, and you can immediately tell if they have cookie cutter kind of Facebook pages or if there's a lot of personal kind of branding involved, a lot of pictures of everyone that works there. The people that work for funeral homes are a big indicator too. Um, like our funeral home is small. It's me and my two partners. We are the three owners and we are the three funeral directors full time. We have a full time funeral assistant, which is my partner Larry's sister, Pam, and she's amazing. And other than that, all of our other staff is part time. We have someone that helps part time in the office, someone that helps part time with cleaning, and everyone else are like subcontractors that are helping on per diem needs, either for helping attend funerals and wakes. We have at least every wake, we like to have someone on the door, someone inside also helping the family, and someone outside assisting people in the parking lot. Um, During funerals, we always have at least, 4 to 6, depending on the size of the funeral, gentlemen that are helping with parking cars and logistics and assisting with the casket and flowers and all of the logistics that happen around a procession and going to church. So that's kind of like the structure. But a lot of these subcontractors and part-time help that work at the funeral home, most of them are retired. So you got to think they're retired. They're not really doing this because they need to. Most people that are these type of funeral workers have a care and compassion for service, and they mean a lot to the community. Um, so they're only going to work in funeral homes that have a good culture, that they feel treated well, that they feel a part of the community. So if you see a lot of people at funeral homes that from the community, like, oh, she drives my bus. Like, I've known this person from the photography studio. Like, that's also a sense that there is a pride, there is a respect, and there is a appreciation for that funeral home. So that's a nice place to start too. Like, start paying attention when you go to wakes and services and notice the people that are opening the door, the people that are helping park your car. They're usually retired adults that are happy to work and help and do this type of work. Um, Let me see if we have any other questions. Ooh, I see Pat Menard. What do you feel is the best way to handle young children who lose their mom? Can they or should they have a private visit before the funeral or cremation? This is a very good question. And the first way that I answer it is always that the closest family knows the children best, right? Above and beyond. There's no like complete roadmap. So the guidelines are, first, you want to think of what elements of the service you, the family, or the surviving parent feel comfortable including them in, and what you think would be okay to include them in. And then you actually you want to present them their options. Some kids of a certain age, usually late toddlerhood and up, they really appreciate just being asked, like, this is what's going to happen. These are the things that you can choose from. It gives them a sense of feeling included in the process, and you're already knowing that you're offering ways to include them that are already good and positive. You know what I mean? So you're already presenting good options. The other thing I'll say is, in my experience, most children of almost all ages really do handle seeing the body better than you could ever think. It actually helps them kind of process what is happening. What is hard for them about the wake is more the social side of it. being around all these strangers. Like, you think about it, you're a child, there's like 100 people around that you don't know. And because of Facebook and social media, all these adults know who you are and they know like details about your life. And they're all like talking to you and looking to you and wanting to like tell you things. That can kind of be overwhelming and sometimes stressful for children. But like you said, a private visit is probably the best option. If you're comfortable with having the child or children see the person in the casket, and this will depend on the mode of death, I mean, and how they look. If it's not a traumatic viewing, that needs to come first and foremost. But a private viewing is always the best way to start because they will be surrounded by only the closest family members, people that they know, and they can see their loved one. The other thing we always like to mention to parents is to try to communicate about death and the funeral and what is happening in kind of simple and truthful terms, if that makes sense, and try to avoid like metaphors and platitudes. And this is because, especially with young children, you just never know how concrete they're going to take things. And sometimes saying something as simple as, oh, grandma's sleeping might hit the wrong way in a young child's mind and could actually, like, studies have come out that some kids develop irrational fears about sleeping, or they connect sleeping to that means they're not coming back. There's a lot that can be avoided by kind of being truthful. I plan to do a whole show about children and different ways that communication can happen, different ways to involve them, different ways to talk to them about it. And a lot of it's going to hinge upon this beautiful, I don't know what to call it. It's like a roadmap that this incredible professor I had gave about how to explain not just death, but almost like the separation of the physical body and the person's spirit, and you can adapt it to any religion or belief system. It's like the perfect, most beautiful thing I've ever learned in school. And I wish I've tried every couple of years, I try to get in touch with her to see if I can get in touch with her and interview her. I believe her name was Professor Wogren. She was at Mount Ida before it closed. So yeah, so that will help tie into that. But thank you for this question. Gotta love Pat Menard because we go from jello shot questions to some good deep stuff. Um, oh, lots of stuff, lots of stuff. So anyway, we'll get to my grandmother. So my grandmother, Mary, she was short, she was beautiful. And growing up when I was a kid, she was, I don't know how to explain it. Like, my grandfather was this like loud, boasting, living legend, right? He was the kind of grandfather that would like play volleyball with us in the yard. He would get down on the floor and play silly and imaginative. He would play in concerts and we'd see him, play the Barry sax with his big band, and we'd go watch him in court. He was a judge. He just had so much outward. He was just one of those people that literally everyone in the area knew and appreciated and loved. And his wife, my grandmother, was like his right hand. Like, she was more reserved than him. I guess regal is the sense or the word that comes to mind when I think of my grandmother. She was just strong. She she never was a funeral director, but she always helped with the business. Like, she kept everything organized. She wrote in a lot of the record books. She helped with the bookkeeping, managing all the tenant properties. She People have told me that she was like one of the best people to just talk to, um, about anything, like life, catching up, adding needing advice, that she was just like this regal, reserved, strong woman. And as a kid, I always sensed that. My grandmother was opposite kind of my mom's mother, who was a little more physically affectionate and a little more communicative, a lot communicative. Like, there was overloads of communication from my grandmother. And Mary, my other grandmother, just had this presence. Like there was always smiles, there was always support, there was always warmth, there was always style. Like she was like a little Portuguese Jackie O. She always had these gorgeous clothes, matching hats and bags. And looking at her past clothes, we were just in love. They had this beautiful house in Swansea that was like a time capsule. She designed the entire interior of the house, and it was like a 1960s time capsule. Wallpaper, like shiny and shimmery. The cabinets were like a teal green. Everything down to like the tile mosaic knobs in the bathroom. This house was like their dream house, and she designed every inch of it. I think it was in a magazine. It was in like a local house and garden type place. It was just, and it stayed this beautiful capsule forever. And in the basement was this huge cedar closet that was a treasure trove of clothing from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And it was mostly my grandmother's, but there were also awesome things of like my dad and his brothers and his sisters. Me and my sister and my cousins would have so much fun just like going through this closet. And she was short. So for me, it was like, everything is my size. Like she had tiny feet like I did. All of her shoes fit. I have this like, I have this disco outfit, I called it, and I used to wear it to disco night on Block Island. If you know, you know. Every Monday night to this day, Captain Nick's has disco night and it's epic. And I rocked her. It's like a Brady Bunch suit, like a tunic top, like cinched at the waist, but kind of like long over to just below the butt, and then bell bottoms, and they were like almost like curtain material, and the color was like white and lime green brocade kind of flowers. It was like the most fabulous outfit ever, and I loved rocking that to disco night on Block Island. So yeah, she exemplified style, regalness, grace, class, elegance. She was just amazing. Her and my grandfather would dance together at events, and it was just like watching, I don't know, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. They were always such amazing partners, so in love with each other. Just a wonderful, wonderful childhood growing up with her. Um, but by the time I had reached high school and of an age where I could really, as an adult, connect with my grandmother, she had started with Alzheimer's. So for me, I noticed Alzheimer's taking effect. She had an accident where she fell and broke like her wrists or her hands. Her hands were in a cast. And that was the first time I started noticing some changes in her mental capacity. And honestly, it was a very slow progression from around the mid 90s until she passed in 2010. It was a long, slow road of Alzheimer's. I later found out in life that they were in an accident, I think when she was in her 50s, and they did some type of scan and had kind of given her a heads up that they might have seen some signs of Alzheimer's. So that kind of clicked to me too, because she kind of joked about not having a memory. Like in those years of high school, she'd be like, "Don't tell me, I'll be the first one to forget," you know? So I don't know, like it was like this slow kind of thing. And in high school, I don't know, I could have conversations with her and have fun with her, and she would like babysit my cousin Robbie with me, and she was just happy as a peach and delighted, and like that reserved regalness kind of started to let loose a bit, and she started to get kind of more like silly and funny, and she was just happy to watch Robbie play with his like Wii Nintendo. There was like a game called Wario that was just super silly and crazy, and she was just happy as a peach to watch this silly game. She was delighted. And we'd start to realize that, you got to kind of keep an eye on her. Like we'd take her for outings and stuff, and she'd kind of wander, and there were like slow progressions like that. So we spent many years kind of working up to, helping care for her. and also making sure that they were still enjoying life. Papa was still very active. He retired from the bench in 92, but he was still like helping and advising lawyers and playing in two bands, and he was at the funeral home all the time. Like, he lived a very active life as long as he could. So as time went on, a lot of things started to change. And I think with Alzheimer's, the benefit in the tragedy is that I got to be a kid or a younger adult. Like, I never got to know the full Mary Silva enough to grieve her. And as a young adult, I was able to, just easier than the adults that were her children and other people in her life, it was easier for me to kind of always meet her wherever she was. And as devastating as Alzheimer's is, that's kind of the only way I found to embrace any beauty that we could find. There were some years where she got really loose and really funny. Like, before she got Alzheimer's more advanced, she consistently and persistently hated golf and referred to it as the four-letter word. And this was something that Papa and my dad and his brothers, like, this golf was like a huge part of their life. And my grandmother hated it. She didn't get it. She was bored by it. She wanted nothing to do with it. So she, even in her Alzheimer's, remembered that she called it the four-letter word. But what she forgot was that not always was she around people that remembered that she might be talking about golf. So there were times where we'd be at restaurants, we'd be around other people, we'd be in waiting rooms, bathrooms, doctor's offices, and she would talk about the four-letter word. And the old man, he wants the four-letter word every day. He'd have it multiple times a day. Like, she would make comments like that, and it would lead to some really interesting, funny situations. She also, like, lost her filter. There was one time we were in a restaurant that was like a single room, and the bathroom was just off the main room, like tables of people eating, and then you open a door and you're in the bathroom. So we were waiting at the door to the bathroom with a crowded Portuguese restaurant all around us. And the woman that had gone in before us was taking a while. I mean, understand, we were definitely standing there for a while. And when she came out, of course, the restaurant seemed to get quiet for a second. And my grandmother points in her face and goes, "It's rude to poop." And the whole restaurant heard it. And the woman was horrified. And I was like, sorry. And we went in. She also, in her Alzheimer's, never wavered in her memory of how much she hated cigarettes. So she would walk by strangers on the street, and she always had her little purse. She always carried this little picture of my grandfather from when he was in the army in her purse, and a card. And she would always say, "The old man's picking up the tab." She always wanted to pay for everything. But she'd see a stranger on the street smoking a cigarette, and she would just take her purse and whack the cigarette with perfect aim. She'd never hit the face, but she'd whack the cigarette right out of their mouth. And I was like, thank God you're a cute little old lady, because if you were a big, burly, Alzheimer's ridden man doing this, you'd probably be getting in fights. Hello, Noodles and Bay Harbor Beauty. So many friends are here. Hello, welcome, and happy Friday. Bay Harbor Beauty. Look at that. Look at that. I'm still glowing. It's all her her products. Clean, efficient, affordable. You got to check out bayharborbeauty.com. Amazing. Hydrating water gel and the eye cream. Cannot go wrong. I also have the serum with hyaluronic acid, if that's the right way to say it. Those three things, plus the exfoliating gentle facial cleanser, are my regime, and it's wonderful. So this kind of progressed on, and then it kind of progressed more, where there was one day we were in the mall, and it was just me and I think my aunts and maybe Robbie, and it was the Swansea Mall, and it was while I think McCain was running or had a book or something. There was a store called FYE that had like a cardboard cutout of John McCain. And she called my grandfather the old man. And I'll show you kind of what he looks like. Not totally John McCain, but that's them. This is my favorite picture of them. Just like so happy. So yeah, that's the old man. That's my papa. So we were in the mall. We always had eyes on her, and then she'd like be like a ninja and she'd just be gone. Like she was fast and she was strong. And we were like, "Where is Vo? What is going on?" And then I think it was my aunt was like, "Oh my God." And we looked and she was standing in between the glass of like the storefront and the cardboard cutout of John McCain. And she was like smacking the cardboard cutout with her bag. And we were like, "What is happening?" And we went in and she was like, "Hey, old man, what's the problem? What's the problem?" Like she was mad that the old man was like ignoring her and thought that that's what John McCain was. So yeah, hi Inez. Inez is here. She is someone I hope to have on and talk. She is a celebrant. She is a chaplain, and she worked for my funeral home for a long time, helping with all the things. She also is the daughter of Inez DaCosta, who is the littlest, wonderfulest spitfire of a woman that is the best chef I've ever met. And she ran a kitchen in Fall River for a long time, and she has been on Emeril Lagasse's show a bunch of times. She pretty much taught Emeril how to cook, and she's hilarious and she's amazing, and I miss her all the time. I think she passed away maybe a year or two after my grandmother. Hi Inez. So yeah, so that progressed, and then in 2010, well, I guess I digress. My grandfather wanted to keep her home as long as possible, and he totally would have, but things progressed a little tough towards the end. Like I said, she's tiny, but it got to the point where we knew it was becoming a bad situation. She We knew that Papa was like, when you're a new mom and you just have that light sleep and you're constantly waking up at the drop of a hat to check on your baby or to see what's going on. He kind of was having that sleep checking on her. At one point, he found, 25% off sale, Bay Harbor Beauty. Um, please check it out, guys. It's wonderful. So at one night, I guess she got out of bed and he found her in the bathtub. And thank God she turned on cold water instead of hot. But it was a bad situation. And another time, like she would get out of the house and just wander down the street. So my uncle like put like a wooden block, like extra lock on the door. She actually pulled it off. She was strong and little. So yeah, it just got harder and harder, and the hard decision had to be made to place her in a nursing home. And luckily, we were able to get her into Somerset Ridge, which is a wonderful nursing home in Somerset. And it was devastating on my grandfather. And I remember we all went the day that he brought her there. And I think it was the perfect time for her to go there, because I don't know, I think the disease had progressed to a place where she wasn't fighting it. You know what I mean? And it was harder on him than it was on her, like leaving his sweetheart there. And we had promised him, it meant the world to him that she never go a day without seeing family. Him, her, ideally wanted, every meal to have a family member there. So she ended up spending 2 years there. And there were days where she thought it was like a hotel and I'd visit and she'd either know who I am or she'd think I was Tina, my aunt, or she'd think I was a friend. But they'd bring her food and she'd think it's a hotel. She'd be like, "What kind of room service is this? Can't you see my niece, my granddaughter," or whoever I was that day? "She's skin and bones. Bring some more for her." And I'd be like, "Please don't. Like, I don't want to eat this." But she'd make me eat, a serving of her food. She'd always ask for a white Zinfandel and be like, "The old man's going to sue you. Where's my white Zinfandel?" So I learned that you could mix ginger ale and a little bit of cranberry and put it in little bottles, and that made her happy and kind of made her think it was white Zin. So there were ways that we made it work, and the Alzheimer's like memory unit of Somerset ridge ended up becoming its own little like community. We had friends that we knew that had loved ones there. We made friends with a bunch of people there, though there was one rivalry. There was this other woman that just didn't like my grandmother, and my grandmother just didn't like her. And there was like a lot of tension whenever they'd do their rounds, like walking down the hall against each other. And that was kind of a fun, dramatic situation many times. But there were beautiful moments sometimes too. There was a moment before she went, or a phase before she went in the funeral home, in the nursing home, where she was like in the time frame where she met my grandfather, like in high school. And that was my favorite gift because she was like puppy love. She would like lay on the couch and just hold his hand like they were at a drive-in. I'd come to the house and she'd think I was like her friend at school, and she'd pull me aside and be like, I think he likes me, and like ask me advice. And I'd be like, go for it. Yes. It was just the best to see. And I know Papa loved it too. They just had the best love story. It was just wonderful. I believe they were married in 47. Ah, God, I can't even remember. But anyway, I just miss both of them. So 2 years in the nursing home progressed to us getting the call that she was shutting down. And it's really, really hard because there's no specific understanding of the timing. You know what I mean? Like she wasn't eating anymore. Swallowing was an issue, and all the signs were there that her body was shutting down. So the nursing home was incredible, and most nursing homes do this. They knew that we had a big family that wanted to be with her. I call it the vigil. Was your grandmother feisty before Alzheimer's? She wasn't. She was like regal and reserved and like strong and proper. And then Alzheimer's came and she'd be like, I'll sue you. It's rude to poop, like making jokes about four-letter words. And yeah, I'll show you. I have some video to show you that'll sum it up. Um, so when we got the call that things were shutting down, we were also worried about my grandfather's health too. So we wanted to devastatingly get through this, surrounding my grandmother with all the love, but also making sure that my grandfather got through this without making his health worse. So me and my cousins and my aunts, we worked out like a schedule where we all spent the night there, like for the whole week. I think it was, God, it was like the first or second week of September. We spent a whole week every day, every night at the nursing home. And that seemed to help make my grandfather feel comfortable enough that he could come and go as he needed, knowing that there was always family with her, like through the night, throughout the day. I knitted, we played cards, we sang to her, we played her favorite music. She loved this like big band CD, like Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree and like Moonlight Serenade, and all the music soothed her. We noticed her breathing would help when we played music too. It used to be basketball, ironically. But yeah, music helped her a lot. So the hardest part about that week of her dying, I mean, we all felt like shit, and it was a horrible long week of not knowing like when it was going to happen and not wanting her to be alone ever. But the hardest part was seeing my grandfather say goodbye to her every day. That was the hardest. And not that I wish, it's such a weird set of emotions. I had never like sat vigil for someone dying, but there's almost a hope that like I don't want him to have to say goodbye again, kind of thing. So when she did pass, I think it was a Saturday morning. I know it was a morning. And we got the call, and I believe all of her children were in the room, and I was there, and my grandfather. And we were all with her when she took her last breath, and she was peaceful. And that was September 11th, 2010. So then we went into planning mode. Now, this is a dynamic I don't think a lot of funeral directors get to share, right? When we serve families, we want families to feel like they're the only people in the world. We want to carry them and like guide them and protect them in a bubble as much as we can from anything that we can keep off their plate, at least while they're with us. You know what I mean? Like guide them through this. And funeral directors, we might not ever get to experience that ourselves because part of our coping and our love language is like in the service and the planning. So my dad, my uncles, myself, like we were all grieving. We were all worried about my grandfather. We were all worried about each other, and we have family all over the country. That's another thing I wanted to talk about too is we had a week long vigil, right? So there was a week of her passing away. Her funeral, she passed away on the 11th. I believe her funeral was on the 19th. Okay? So that was a decent clip over a week after. That was because we needed time for family to fly in. We had cousins in California. We had lots of people that needed to fly in from all sides of our family. One of the hard things to tell families too and to think about is you don't know how long it's going to take for someone to shut down. Sometimes when the nursing home says we're seeing signs, it could be a day, it could be a week. Like they're really being truthful. You just don't know. Um, and for families that are going to need to travel, especially if they're working and they have like a limited window, it's going to be really hard to control getting here in time to both say goodbye and be here for the services because you just don't know when those two things are going to be able to happen within the window that you have. Does that make sense? So the decision and the way that I've told families to kind of present it to people that don't live in the area is to try to think about what means the most to them because you can kind of only shoot for or guarantee one because you can't control the timing of either. Does that make sense? So if you have family and you're in this situation and some of the family lives far away, what you want to present to them is it more important for you to be here and try to say goodbye? Or is it more important for you to be here for the funeral? Because if they answer that it means more to them to be here to say goodbye, then you want them to come right away. If they answer that, you know what? It means more that I'm there with everybody for the planning, for the funeral, for the dinners, for the, putting everything together, going through things at the house. That can be coordinated along with the funeral plan. Does that make sense? So I like to always share that with families that are having kind of a family member that is shutting down and we don't have an idea of exactly when that's going to go. That also brings me to why we can never plan funerals before someone passes. And that's a really hard concept for people to digest in the midst of the emotion of it all because they want to try to be ahead of things. But because death and the scientific, like bodily function of dying, there's no way of knowing exactly when that's going to happen. Even when it's natural causes, even when it's like someone's on life support and you're pulling a plug. We've had people decide to take someone off life support and they pass within hours. We've had some people that somehow are able to stay alive for a couple of days. So we can never actually plan a funeral until the death occurs because you've got to understand, like a restaurant, um, we have to accommodate other families that could be called. We could get 11 deaths today and have to accommodate all of those families first. And it has to be around actual death. So, yeah, just wanted to say that. So, when we went into planning mode, my brain and my coping was like the video and the pictures and the personalization. We wanted to me and my cousins band together and write a poem for her prayer card. We wanted everything to be personalized and nothing to be cookie cutter. You know what I mean? And we were planning the services around making sure everyone could fly in. So once we knew when everyone could get here, that depicted the date of the funeral. And I I knew I wanted to write and deliver the eulogy. It just kind of came to me over the next couple of days. And that became like my coping, my function, my love language, my gift. It just was how, like, I can't imagine not being part of the funeral team for someone that I love. But also, I kind of always wonder what it would be like to be carried through this. So it was an interesting situation. And it was my dad and his siblings like losing their parent. So that was a lot, seeing like my dad, who's not the most overly emotional guy. Yeah, it was a lot to navigate. And we got through it and we worked on like a really epic video. We were lucky to have a lot of photos and video of my grandmother. Um, Here's some of it. This is my grandmother in her gorgeousness, and this is my mom and my dad at their wedding in 1977, and that's my grandfather on the right. See, my dad is totally John Belushi, and my mom is totally Portuguese Princess Diana. I told you. But yeah, they're just beautiful. And here is my high school graduation. This is their house. This is like a little taste of their amazing house in Swansea that I love. And that painting is just gorgeous. So yeah, this was my high school graduation in 1997. Feels like the other day. And this is my favorite picture of my grandparents. I think this is their wedding day, like on their way to like the honeymoon. I mean, look at my grandfather's like handsome Kramer kind of hair, like holy moly, the eyebrows, the bone structure. My grandmother is gorgeous. This coat, this hat, the shoes, like this was her closet. Like you could just imagine what an amazing vintage experience it was being in her closet. And my grandparents were just the absolute cutest. So we went on to get everything together for this epic slideshow video that we made with me and my cousins. I believe we stayed up the entire night, the night before the wake. I think it was me, my cousin Jesse, and my cousin Alan, and my sister Patricia Acha that you met. And we put it all together, and it was like in categories and had a lot of video footage, and it came out amazing. I have it. I didn't know if you wanted to see any of it. I might show you a little bit of timestamps, just to show kind of the humor of my grandmother in the height of her fun Alzheimer days. So I'm going to share some of it. This is her video. I'm going to play the audio. So that's her. That's my dad and his sister. But what I want to show you, I'll show you 6:30. This is their, I forget what year wedding. This was a wedding anniversary party that I didn't get to go to in 97. And this is just them being silly. Saying, don't you dare.
On my word of honor, I won't put it on your nose.
He says, on my word of honor, I won't put it on your nose.
Take the picture, will you?
They were just my favorite. Oh, I want to show you a little bit of Malasada's. There's a video of her. Oh, this is them. I think I mentioned on my first show that my grandfather and my grandmother and the 5 kids took like a cross-country trip. They drove around the country in an RV, and these are the pictures from it. Amazing. Like, what a gift to have these. That's my grandmother in the RV. And what's great is they had all these all these landmarks and places they wanted to visit in the country, and they had RV parks to stay in, but whenever they couldn't find an RV park, they started calling funeral homes to visit, like strangers that they had never talked to, because most funeral homes have parking lots. So they ended up connecting with funeral homes around the country that let them park their RV and, like, plug in and get to meet them and connect with funeral homes around the country. So this is something I dream of doing someday when I can afford the money and the time. This is my favorite video of them, sorry. So here is my grandfather dancing with the daughter of a fellow veteran that he served with in the re-evacuational unit in World War II. This was a reunion for his unit. So this was like a really beautiful moment. So he's dancing with her, and in a moment, you will see my grandmother sitting at the table with me, absolutely pissed that he's dancing with a flea. And he's so jealous. He's so upset. Actually, I can see him so jealous. So there she is in the field. We'll come around. Look how mad she is. She's so mad. There's the thumbs down. That's like her biggest thing. That's my Aunt Tina, who everyone thinks is my mom when we go out. She's so mad. Anyway. Then everyone's happy.
I just signed the affidavit.
What's he doing?
He's the one from Minnesota. Yeah, I talked to him quite a bit.
Somebody else sitting.
It's somebody else sitting there. Nobody's sitting there.
Are they made of the garden?
Watch what she does. Look at this chair. She wanted it to fall. She's giving away. My God. I just love them. That's me. Me and my cousins, they're the best cousins in the world. And I have to say, losing a grandparent, cousins are like the biggest. Oh, there's us raiding right now. That's like a blue alligator jacket. But yeah, cousins got me through it. And then this is my other favorite thing I wanted to show you in the video. You'll see us all at the bench with my grandfather. This is his retirement party. They had a surprise retirement party for him at the bench where us grandkids got to be handcuffed to each other and sit in the jail cell. And he thought it was a normal day of judging. And he called the next case, and it was supposed to be a bunch of criminals that, like, I don't know, robbed a liquor store or something. And he was like, bring in the defendants. And in came all of his grandchildren handcuffed to each other. It was amazing. And then a big party ensued, and it was just the best day ever. Yeah, that's me and my sisters and all my cousins, except Robbie, who wasn't born yet. So yeah, this next video
has been my bride for 59 years.
This is at my wedding.
Would you believe it? And if you guys can last half as long as we have and be as happy and fruitful in the number of kids you have, then you're certainly going to enjoy life. And that's what it's all about, is to enjoy life and share it together. And just as sort of a background, it's not like it was years ago. When Mom and I got married, and she said to her mother, what should I expect All her mother said was, man on top, woman on the bottom. As a result, we slept in bunk beds for 2 years. Have fun, kids.
Watch what she does. That's her favorite thing to do. I loved her so much. Both of them. And that was at my wedding. And me and my husband celebrate 20 years in May, which is crazy. So we went about planning the funeral, writing the eulogy, putting together this epic, almost 30-minute long, beautiful slideshow, which I'll add to my videos if you wanted to see it. And I wrote the eulogy, which I had written one before for a family friend that died. And that experience was that I knew that he had died. He was like family that I thought my whole life was actually related to me, but they were not blood related. They were the Texeras. But I grew up like always at their house. Their family is like family to me. They took in my mom when she came from Portugal. She lived with them for a while. So finding out they weren't family when I got older was like, what are you talking about? And he was very close. Like their family goes way back with all sides of my family. So when he died, I was devastated. And I was driving one day and just everything for his eulogy and what I wanted to say just hit me out of nowhere. And I remember I had to pull over and just write everything down. And that's when I put it all together. And he didn't have, I mean, he had other people giving official eulogies in church, but when we went to White's for the reception, they had put up a microphone, and when everyone had finished eating, and it was a large amount of people that were there, this was a huge family and huge part of the community. I got up and I read what I wrote, and that was my first official, eulogy. So this was my second, and a similar thing kind of happened where it started coming to me like in bits and pieces while she was dying. Like it came from a place of like what I wanted for her. And then it kind of went on from there. It just kept hitting me. And I just kept adding to it and changing it. Like even up until the day before, I don't think I've ever told many people this, but the night before the funeral, well, no, let's go back to the wake. So the wake was insane. It was very long. I would be shocked if there was less than 1,000 people that came through. It was just constant. And it was me and the cousins holding each other like through all of it. We were so happy that we weren't like the immediate family that had to stay in the receiving line the whole time. We were able to kind of band together and take advantage of the fact that this was our house. This was my house. So we could like go to the office, which was set up as a bar because it was like funeral home family. So we converted the whole downstairs office into food and alcohol and refreshments and a place to get away. So the cousins were in and out of the wake, and we were, I couldn't get through anything without the cousins is the takeaway for that. And that night, after the wake ended and everyone left, we all went downstairs and we had a toast and everybody started drinking. And I remember I only drank like the toast shot. I think it was Macieira, it's still like my dad's favorite Portuguese brandy. And I had it before and I had this little shot of it. And I remember being like, whoa, I am trash. Like I lived next door and I needed my cousin to like walk over next door with me because my husband had already gone home. And I was like, why am I so drunk? This is crazy. And then the night before the funeral, like I had gone to sleep, I had finished the eulogy. And I swear to God, this is the dream I had. I dreamt of the funeral. I dreamt that I was giving the eulogy. And in the dream, I gave the exact eulogy that I wrote. And then at the end of it, I mentioned something about the circle of life and the gifts that sometimes people leave on their way up to heaven. And no better a time than now to announce that the 6th generation is here. And I announced at the end of the eulogy that I was pregnant. Now, this is 2010. I had been married in 2006, and we had been trying to get pregnant that whole time and just kept failing. And I hadn't done IVF, but I had started the process of like getting checked and making sure I had that painful, I don't know, painful procedure where they go into my fallopian tubes. And that had just happened maybe a couple months before. I had been through all the things, and it was mostly determined that maybe stress was in the way. There was nothing else really standing out to show that there was a problem with either of us. And the only funny part about this whole waiting to get pregnant for so long was there was this old lady, this old Portuguese lady that lived up the street from me, and she would kind of yell at us when we were kids. But she was nice. She had a twin sister that was nicer, so she was kind of the meaner old Portuguese lady. But I was running a funeral, not my grandmother's. This was like a year before, and I was walking in procession at the start of the mass, like "How Great Thou Art" or "Here I Am, Lord" is playing. It's official. Like the pallbearers are ahead of me. I'm walking in front of the casket, leading it down the aisle, somber, professional. I have a suit on, music's playing, everyone's standing. This is like the funeral. And this woman is standing at the end of the aisle, like right at the edge. And as I'm coming up, she steps into the aisle in front of me and goes, "Hey, me, you fat, baby." And I was like, "No, just fat." And I just kept going. And I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that just happened." So, yeah. So the whole community knew that I was married. It was this big, fat Portuguese wedding. And my grandmother loved babies and children more than anything. So I woke up the next morning like, wow, that was weird. That was weird that I had that dream. So we got through the funeral, and I got up in church and I gave the eulogy. And I don't know if you want me to read it. I know we're already 5:10. I have her eulogy in a video in one of my playlists of my short videos called Eulogies. So if I can either let you guys watch it there, or I have it pulled up if you want me to read it. Um, so yeah, so what do you guys think? Do you want me to read it, or do you want to just watch it later? What's the consensus, yo? Because I don't have my iPad today to do a poll. So whatever you want to do, you know what? I'll just read it because it's in my brain. So this is what I read in church. Oh, it was September 16th. It was the day of the funeral. The dementia associated with Alzheimer's is commonly talked about with negative connotations. In Mary's case, as her family embraced each version of her as the illness progressed. Let me make sure you can hear me. Okay, because I can't see the screen while I read this. We had a hard time feeling sorry for her because she never felt sorry for herself. She was always entertained by the simplest things in life, be it the newest baby in the family, Papa's music, basketball, or poking fun at somebody for how tall they are. I speak for all of the grandchildren when I say that we all really got to know her during the arc of her illness. We enjoyed her humor, instinctively became protective of her, and always knew that she loved us. For example, I remember when Robbie, the youngest grandchild, who was around 9 years old at the time, came to friendlies with Vavo and I. We were seated at a booth, and when we got to the table, Robbie urged Vavo to go into the booth first, before him. Then he turned to me and said, like an old man, "This way it won't be easy for her to keep getting up. She's quick like a ninja." Smartest 9-year-old ever. We always cherished our outings with her. She loved to take walks. She ate like a bird, so she was a cheap date and was always full of surprises. Also, in spite of the progression of her Alzheimer's, certain aspects of her personality never changed. To name a few, her quick wit. She could spit zingers out faster than you saw them coming. She hated smoking and always held Papa accountable, be it picking up the check or taking her home when she'd had enough. A favorite memory of mine was a couple of months before she went into the nursing home, and I arrived at the house to find both Vavo and Papa cuddling, holding hands on the couch like two teenagers. When Papa got up to go into the kitchen, she came up to me and said, "I think he likes me." Her transition into her stay at Somerset Ridge was very difficult, but the process was made far less painful for all of us thanks to the amazing staff there. We are deeply grateful for their enduring commitment to her and our family. We can only hope that her happiness will be as big of a factor in heaven as well. As we did with the staff at Somerset Ridge, we'd like to give some suggestions to the angels that will be in charge of her. Not to step on any wings, but it would be nice if it was determined that everyone she came across with up there would appear to be shorter than 5'8". That everywhere she went would instantly become non smoking, that it would be forbidden to take her picture. She hated that. That she should have an unlimited supply of Beringer White Zinfandel, and that she should always have her hat and her purse with her. And in that purse, I pray there will always be Papa's picture and a note card that reads, "The old man is okay. We are taking very good care of him. He wants you to wait for him, and in the meantime, would like you to enjoy being yourself again. And don't worry, in the end, the old man will pick up the check." So that was my eulogy for my grandmother. And as understandable, the funeral was beautiful and full of love and full of support and exhausting. And I believe it was the next day or soon after that I planned a brunch. I was meeting my best friends from high school, and we were going to have brunch together. And my best friend Chicky, when I arrived there, we always would have the eggs Benedict. We were also very good at like ordering 2 or 3 meals and like sharing them all so we could get more variety. Chicky's just one of my very, very best friends. I believe I was meeting Chicky and Devin and Joy for breakfast. I think it was Percy's in North Dartmouth. And when I sat down, Chicky said, "Hey, take a look at the menu. Just know I can't have eggs Benedict, at least for 9 months anyway." And I was like, "Oh." And Chicky told me she was pregnant. And I was like, "Oh my God, best news ever." Like, it was the best brunch. And I believe Joy's son, Aiden, was there in his little baby seat. Like, it was just like the best day I could have after the day that I had. So then I'm driving home from that breakfast and the math hits me. I'm late. Oh my God, I'm late. But this is like the 32nd time that I've wondered if I'm pregnant. So I didn't want to get John's hopes up. I didn't want to get my hopes up. So I dipped into a CVS. I grabbed a pregnancy test. And when I got home, John was taking a nap on the couch. And I was like, "Hey, babe." And I like just ran into the bathroom, peed on the stick. And it was like, not even a minute had gone by. It was like, boom, you are pregnant. Blah! And I just sat in the bathroom like, oh my God. And I'm like, how do I tell John? What do I say? And I didn't know what to say. And I was still trying to figure out what to say. And I came out of the bathroom like in shock. And he was like, "What's up?" And I was like, and I just threw it at him. I threw the pregnancy stick at him. The cover was on. And he was like, "Oh my God." And we were just through the roof. And he ran out the door and he went to CVS and he bought like 10 more pregnancy tests. And we just spent the whole day peeing on sticks. And it was like all the different brands, everything was positive. It was the best day ever. And I remember we sent pictures to his parents and my parents of just the pile of pregnancy sticks saying positive in all different ways. And just knowing that I was pregnant was the gift. And I think about a week later, we told Papa. And being able to tell my grandfather that he was going to have his first great grandchild within a week or two after losing his wife was like the biggest gift in the world. It was just everything. So I call my gynecologist, I call my doctor, and of course they make the appointment like can't be until 9 weeks gestation. Da 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 da. So I do the math. We figure out conception was September 2nd. So that whole week that my grandmother was dying, I was pregnant and I had no idea. So we're just elated and we finally get to go to our appointment. And the little backstory you need to know. No, I'll wait for that. So we're doing the ultrasound, and women, lots of women in my chat, you will know that men assume every ultrasound is like on TV where they just do it over your belly. I forget to warn my husband, like, no, the first ultrasound is vaginal. So my husband was already laughing because the woman was like, do you want to insert it or me? And like lifted up this huge thing with the lube. So it was already like a funny room. And we were just so happy. And she started the ultrasound. And I remember her saying, I'm not going to say anything for a while. I'm just going to take all my measurements and then I'll tell you everything that you're seeing. And I'm like, okay, no problem. So we're just sitting back, watching the screen, blippy bloopy, alien images. And I remember seeing 2 circles and being like, those must be my ovaries. I have 2 of those. And then the woman's like, okay. And she takes the cursor and she goes, here's baby A. And I'm like, why is there a letter for my baby? And she goes, and she goes to the other circle. Before she finishes, here's baby B. I start laughing so much. The thing is still in me. The whole screen goes, and my husband, I could just see his profile and he has the best smile with like a million like smile lines when his whole face smiles. And he's just like we just start laughing, like the biggest surprise of my life. We were not thinking twins in any way, shape, or form at all. The only twins in my family are my grandfather's first cousins on the Benavides side. And they're these old men named Bob and Tony. And they were in some magazine, not Life magazine, but it was around in the same time because they, I think, lived in Fall River and Somerset. These identical brother twins, Bob and Tony, married identical sister twins, Jane and Joan. Tony married Joan and Bob married Jane, and they had a double wedding, and the cover of the magazine was both of them, like all 4 of them at the church, and their matching dresses, and it was just, they're just the best. So my grandfather is very close with them, has breakfast with them all the time. So after we find out we're having twins and we catch our breath, she sends us to the waiting room to then talk to the doctor. So we start texting our family cryptic messages thinking we'll have time to answer them. And we're like, double the pleasure, double the fun. And we text just this grainy picture of like the A and B circles. And I call my grandfather. And I had called my dad and my mom. I think John had called his parents. I called my dad. My dad happened to be on the golf course with a friend of his that is a twin or had a twin. And then I call my grandfather and he picks up the phone and he's like, hey. And I was like, hey, Papa, what are you doing? He's like, I'm having breakfast with my favorite twins. That's what he called them. And I was like, well, funny you should mention that. Papa, I'm having twins. And he goes, well, they've just been demoted. And I can hear Bob and Tony laughing in the background. It was like the best day ever. So we go in with the doctor and she had this cute little like packet for like, welcome to motherhood, da, da, da. She puts that aside. She's like, well, now that we know we're having twins, she like reaches behind and puts out a binder that's like this thick. And we had to test right away for gestational diabetes, like whole new plan. Here's an 8-week course we're signing you up at, Women and Infants for Marvelous Multiples. You're going to meet all these other couples that are having twins and maybe triplets. It was like, whoa. And she was like, most importantly, you have to do this scan. I forget it what week. It was like 15 or 18 weeks, but it was like, there's a word for it, where they have to like measure the neck. Some nurses might know what I'm talking about. There was like a really important scan that they had to wait a couple of weeks to do, and that they would find out like what kind of twins we have, identical, fraternal, if they share a sac, placenta, all those things. She's like, this is a very long, very important scan. So we go to this scan and we find out that our twins are identical. And the doctor, as he's telling us this, is like, identical twins don't run in the family. Identical twins are magic. Identical twins mean that one egg and one sperm create one baby. And then depending how many days after, which we can tell by all the other information we're going to look at, the egg just splits. And there's no scientific reason or explanation why. So we're going to find out all of these things. So it was like an hour-long scan. So they were identical twins. They shared a placenta. They had their own sacs. They were like good twins. And we were told we got to monitor, make sure they're like sharing the umbilical cord and everything evenly. And they were like, you're going to be scanned pretty much every week and all these interesting things. And then he's like, do you want to know when your egg split? And we were like, yeah. And he told me what we knew, that the date of conception was September 2nd. And he said the egg split on September 11th. After 9 days. So that made me know that my grandmother, who couldn't have access to her cognition or the life that she probably really wanted, was probably trapped inside, wishing and hoping all these things and not being able to communicate any of it. And on her way up to heaven, she was like, you know what? There's one in there. Make it two. And I'll always believe that's what happened. So yeah, that's the story of my grandmother. And that's also why I felt so drunk off of half a shot of Sierra. Like, looking back, I was like, it all makes sense now. Yeah, just wild. It's just wild how things happen. So that's the story of losing my grandmother. So thank you for watching. God, I miss her. So when it comes to the start of a funeral or when a death happens, it all, in my world, starts with the first call. We are never initiated. We are never engaged. We as funeral directors are never hired until we get the call notifying us both that we are chosen or hired and that the person has passed away. So there's different categories of where deaths commonly occur. My grandmother died in a nursing home. Most nursing homes don't have morgues or holding rooms or holding areas. So when a death happens in a nursing home, that means there's something called a nurse pronouncement. So the doctor doesn't immediately come in and declare the death or the cause of death. That means the nurse is able to do the pronouncement so that we can pick the person up. And usually it works around the family. If someone dies in a nursing home, we get the call, usually from the nurse, to let us know. And they tell us when the family's ready for us to come, because they always prioritize letting the family take the time they need. Sometimes everyone that needs to be there is there as they're passing. Sometimes they aren't. And don't ever hesitate to ask the nurses, if you need to work around people. Sorry. So with a hospice situation, nursing home situation, nurses can pronounce. So we will always engage and get there within an hour from when we're told that the family's ready. This could be at 2 a.m. This could be at 3 a.m. This could be during a blizzard, rain, sun, shine. It does not matter. We prioritize. We will get there when the nursing home needs to get there so that we do not add to upsetting any family or, like fellow residents. You just don't want that. So when people die at home, there's a couple different scenarios. If a person dies at home and they're already on hospice, that means hospice is involved. And they usually in the intake find out which funeral home you want them to call. And that also means that when the person dies, if the hospice nurse isn't already there as it's happening, the hospice nurse is the first phone call you make, because they're going to come, they're going to pronounce, they're going to make sure everything is set, and they're going to call us. And they're also, just like in the nursing home, going to work around when everyone's ready for us to come to the house and to pick them up. If someone dies at home and hospice is not in place, then the first call has to be to the police. This is because the police have to come, they have to kind of assess the situation and rule out any foul play or questionable death. They also have to describe the situation to the medical examiner. House deaths, unattended deaths, we call it, unexpected deaths, always include the police officer checking in with the medical examiner. The medical examiner is then given the name of, whoever the doctor is that the person might have seen. The medical examiner is able to do some research and gather a general idea if this person seems to have enough in their medical history that natural causes seem to be what happened, and that the police also is saying, well, there's no, sign of foul play or accident or something that needs to be looked into. So the medical examiner then has the choice of saying, okay, we waive, which means that's telling the police officer to tell the family, the medical examiner is not going to take custody of your loved one. The medical examiner has waived so that you can call the funeral home, and now the funeral home can come pick them up. And that tells us that we then have to contact the medical examiner to find out which doctor they have waived to. That points us to which doctor is going to be doing the paperwork and the death certificate. The other choice is the medical examiner. There's like a middle ground where the ME could be like, well, I want to waive and the funeral home can pick up, but we're not allowing the funeral home to embalm. We're going to do a funeral home viewing. Like, we just want to see the body. Like, sometimes there's natural causes, but there's bruising or something else that just needs to be looked at. That's another option a medical examiner can have. They can request a viewing, which would tell us you can pick the person up, but you cannot embalm or do anything to the body until the medical examiner comes to the funeral home to view and get whatever they need. The third option is they say, for whatever reason they deem, that they're going to be taking custody and bringing the person to the medical examiner facility. And here in our area, we have a medical examiner office in Boston and also in the Cape. So then that would be what is then told to the family, that they will be sending, the medical examiner works with like agent removal services or funeral home agents that come and pick up the person. So the family will be told that the medical examiner is going to be taking custody and will be in touch about release. So then you can call the funeral home, you can report the death and say that the medical examiner is taking custody, and they would say which medical office so that you can meet with the funeral home and follow up. When someone is taken custody into the medical examiner, it could mean that they want to do an autopsy. It could mean that they just want toxicology. It could mean that they just, need to view. But it means that no plans can be made at all until we get the release. Because you just don't know how long the person's going to be at the medical examiner. Everything's in their hands until they release. The other situation that is common is people pass away at the hospital. And I wanted to say the other situation that could lead to these same outcomes is if someone dies of an accident or at any location where they pass away. The police are the first call. They have to run it by the medical examiner, and the medical examiner then decides what the next steps are. Oh, Edie is here. Hi, Edie. I did theater with her daughter. She's still one of my favorite dancers I've ever met. And Genuine is here, and VVV's vibrantly. Hello. Dr. Trey is here. Hello. So many good friends. So when people pass away in a hospital, usually the hospital doesn't call the funeral home, but they tell the family when they can call the funeral home. So the family calls us and says, my family member just passed at the hospital, and gives us all the information. And what then happens is we tell the families, and usually the hospital nurses will tell the family, like, take all the time you need, because then hospitals do have morgues and they do have internal protocols they have to follow in terms of cleaning the body, removing any medical devices, catheters, needles, etc., preparing the body so that we can pick up. They have their own release schedule. They usually need to internally do their own paperwork and attestations with the doctor for the death certificate. And what we do is, when we get the call, we speak with the family, we follow up with the hospital to see what is happening. We check in with the hospital, because the same thing also applies with the medical examiner. Medical examiner is always notified with certain situations. So we have to check if the medical examiner is going to be taking custody. We also have to check if the person's flagged for organ donation. A lot of people don't know that, or they assume that only if you say, I want to be an organ donor, are you eligible to be an organ donor. And that's not the case. Depending on the person's chart, their history, what they have, people get flagged as possible candidates to the organ bank. And this needs to be figured out before anybody can be released. And the only way that the organ bank process can be moved past is by the family talking to the organ bank, being presented the options, and the family has the right to say, yes, we want this organ donation to move forward, or no, we do not. And until that happens, we cannot pick up the body. So sometimes that does hold things up. Sometimes they're given the wrong family number, or there's like phone tag between the organ bank and the family. And sometimes we have to kind of help put them in touch. Because a lot of times, like I said, they don't think they need to deal with organ bank because it wasn't on their license or it wasn't something they wanted, but they still need to verbally decline this with the organ bank. And the organ bank is wonderful. They know how to talk to the family. They will present all of the options. The family always has the last say in what they do or do not want to happen with organ donation. So all of those protocols need to happen, which is why right when we know that it's a hospital death, we follow up with the hospital so they know that we are the funeral home, and they stay in touch with us when the paperwork's ready and to coordinate release. Some hospitals require a release form signed by the next of kin. And sometimes the medical examiner, all times actually, the medical examiner requires a release form signed by the next of kin. This is pretty much giving legal permission for us, the funeral home, to pick up the body. Next of kin is another important thing I don't know people understand. Do we all know how next of kin works? Do we all know who our next of kin is? It's like a formula, like a scale formula. First is always spouse. If you have a spouse, you're legally married, that is your next of kin. If you are planning to divorce or temporarily separated, but the divorce has not gone through, still a legal spouse, that's the next of kin. If there is no spouse, I believe it goes next to children. Children are interesting because your children equally are all your next of kin. If they are above the age of 18, they themselves are your next of kin. They can sign. If your children are under 18, then whoever the parent or legal guardian is of those children under 18 have to sign on their behalf. So they are your next of kin. If there are no children, then it goes to parents. If you have legal parents living, that's your next of kin. If you don't have parents living, you don't have children, you don't have a spouse, then it goes to siblings. That's how it works. It's like this, no, then we go to next, no, then we go to next. So I believe after siblings, it might go to uncles, like uncles, nieces, and nephews, and other blood relatives are kind of linear. So it kind of just goes by elimination. So this is important to know because of release from the medical examiner. It's important to know who the legal next of kin is, or many, because if it's children, it's multiple. It's also important if the intention is to be cremated. In the state of Massachusetts, we have a weird constitutional law that your body, once you die, the custody of your body is of your next of kin. Like your next of kin has custody over your body the minute that you die. So nobody in the state of Massachusetts can be cremated without a next of kin signing. That's really tough when, think about it. Say the spouse is the next of kin, but they're in the middle of separating. But the mother thinks that she has authority and she doesn't. These things can get really complicated when it comes to next of kin. And 9 times out of 10, when the funeral home is reaching out to the legal next of kin and there might be estrangement, or the next of kin might be a bunch of, maybe he has 3 children from 3 different women and they're all under 18. Those 3 baby mamas are his next of kin and need to sign for his cremation. And sometimes when you reach out to these family members and ask for their signature for cremation to take place, sometimes you're met with resistance. Sometimes there might be an assumption that, like, I'm not signing anything. Like, does that mean I have to pay? Or there might be, on principle, they just don't want to cooperate. You just never know what's going to come up and what's going to happen. And sometimes families don't like that we have to get all children to sign, but we really have to. And if there's like an estrangement in the children, in one of the children, we have to take every possible step to get in touch with them and get them to sign. There's other ways that you can prove that you've exhausted every effort to sign, but it's not something anyone's comfortable doing. And this is why cremation cannot be undone. Okay. The other thing about cremation is you have to pay for a medical examiner cremation permit in most states. In Rhode Island, it's $31. In Massachusetts, it's $200. What it means is that every single person that gets cremated has to be viewed in person at the crematory or at the medical examiner by a medical examiner as a last-ditch effort to say, okay, everything looks above board. The death certificate says they died of pneumonia, and they look at the body and they see a bullet wound. They're not going to let that cremation happen. You know what I mean? So for that, there's a fee and there's a permit for it. This is because cremation cannot be undone. A burial can be undone. If someone's put in the wrong grave, or there's a family estrangement or lawsuit happening about where they're buried, it can be exhumed and remediated. Cremation cannot be undone. So there's a lot of legalities with cremation. My prayer and my hope for the state of Massachusetts is that we can have legislation similar to Rhode Island, where in Rhode Island, pretty much if you yourself take the time to prearrange your own funeral and put in writing and sign a contract and even pre-fund that you want to be cremated, that trumps any other next of kin having an issue with it. Massachusetts needs to do that too. And what I've heard is the reason Massachusetts hasn't is because it would go against their common law, like your body becomes the custody of your next of kin when you die. This was from the birth of our state. This needs to be stopped. We are in an age where people should be able to make their own decisions and those wishes should be trusted. Because you know how many situations we see where, like, the children, the guy dies, he has a bunch of adult children, they all know that he wants to be cremated. He's been communicating with it for years, but he just recently married someone, and now that spouse has the say and she can do whatever she wants, and because she doesn't like the kids or whatever, she goes against it. These things would not happen if you yourself should have the power to decide what you want above anybody else interfering with it. And you should be able to have a list in your funeral file of what are my non-negotiables and what are the things I'm open to my family changing or modifying if they need to, based on their needs at the time of my passing. That should be part of every file. So yeah, I have a lot of political issues when it comes to my industry. And everything I talk about on the show is going to be related to issues my industry has, or any topic I will talk about through the lens of grief as well. So that's why that's all important. So now we've gotten through like the first call. That's the majority of situations. We get the first call, whether it's in the middle of the night, during the day, whatever. We first handle the logistics of getting the body into our care. And next, we make arrangements for the family to come in and sit down and plan what they want. Regardless of whether the person's being cremated or not cremated, or buried, or having a traditional service or a direct service, regardless, the funeral director, when we sit down and do the arrangement, we have to start with information. This is because we are the ones that get the information from the family, the informant, and that is how the death certificate gets filed. We get all the personal information from the family, we enter it, we input it, we also coordinate and make sure the right doctor is connected to the case and gets their medical portion done. We finalize and sign off on the personal portion and that the doctor is completed, and then that gets passed off to the burial agent and the city or town clerk, and that's when the death certificate gets registered and issued. The Board of Health signs off. We've always been part of the process. We've just never been paid for it. Ever. Well, no, we have. Historically, I heard, at the beginning of the century, the city of Fall River used to put in the Herald at the end of every year, funeral homes were paid like a quarter or 5 cents. There was like a cent amount that was paid to each funeral home for every death certificate that they filed, to honor the fact that we do most of the work on these permits and these death certificates. And what funeral homes loved about that was it gave us a yearly audit of the market share. Because Fall River back then had tons of funeral homes. So all the funeral directors knew when that report was put out, it gave a clear picture of, how much of the market each funeral home did. And it kept everyone, understanding where everything's at from year to year. So yeah, that's kind of wild. So here's an example of what we call an obit card. Oops, sorry, that's my sister. We call this an obit card or an information card. And this is like our intake sheet where we put all of the information. Most of this is for the death certificate. This is also used for the obituary that we help formulate with the family. It's also used for some internal things, like if they're having military honors, what type casket they want, like notes for the staff, what prayer card prayers. It's like the central location for all of the information in the planning and coordinating process. Remember, planning a funeral is similar to planning a wedding, but in like 3 or 4 days. So just imagine, while I read off all of these items, I want you to think in your head of someone close to you that could pass someday that you would probably be the one arranging for. And just think about how much of this list you might already know, and how much of this list you're going to be like, holy shit, I need that. Because it feels like Jeopardy sometimes. I'll have like 6 children in front of me and they're like, oh my God, I don't know. And then they're like, competing for points. So we need full name. Full name, we want to include name, middle name, last name. For women, maiden name. For men that have been married, surname at birth is also always entered. We need the legal address. Legal address means wherever they lived for 6 months at least before dying. That's legal address. Marital status. A lot of people want to say single. Single is not an accepted marital status. It is married, it is divorced, widowed, or never married. Single does not say enough. Either you're never married or you're divorced, widowed, or married. And if you put that you're widowed or divorced, they do want to list the last spouse. This is only for the death certificate. I want you to know too, there's a separation between death certificate and obituary. Death certificate is like legal. Everything needs to be consistent, accurate, and as legal as possible because it's a public record. The obituary, the family is in charge of what that is. So if we have to put the last spouse on the death certificate, it doesn't mean that you have to include the last spouse on the obituary. Sometimes, families want to include certain things and say things differently in the obituary. Know that obituaries are not legal documents. Obituaries are at the will and preference of the family. The family is in charge of what goes in and what doesn't, how things are worded, how they aren't. It's up to the family. Nicknames, all the things. So, last spouse, we also need birth date, date of birth, and we need the birthplace. If they were born in the country, we need the city or town and the state. And then we need both of their parents' names. We need the father's full name and where they were born. If it's in the country, we need city or town and state. If they were born outside of the country, we only need the country. But sometimes for the obituary, we like to add more. Like in our area, if they were born in the Azores, we like to add not only which island, but which village. It sometimes helps people connect recognition, which is a big part of the obituary. Mother's maiden name is usually understandable, but it's kind of hard when you're doing the funeral for your grandmother and you need to know your grandmother's mother's maiden name. A lot of times that's where people are like, oh no. And maiden name gets confusing in certain cultures where sometimes people take the paternal name instead of the maternal name on the opposite side. So we just kind of got to make everything match to what it needs to be and explain that to the city or town clerk if they think there's a discrepancy. We also need the mother's birthplace, same thing as the father. We do need everyone's social security number. This is because death certificates are now done online as computerized, like in a portal. And as we enter the information and the social security number, there's actually a verification that happens in real time. So social security not only gets verified, but there's an immediate notice. And all I've been told that happens immediately is the protection of that number being in the system as deceased to help against fraud or identity theft or anything like that. What does not happen fast is that the payments don't stop right away. Payments normally continue up to 2 months, and then the government, Social Security, just takes whatever they're entitled to back in one transaction. Work and career history. This is two-sided. For the death certificate, they just want one like main title and occupation, like occupation and industry. Now they let us put actual names of places they worked, like Globe Manufacturing, machine operator. But it used to be that it had to be like vague descriptions. So you want to pick one, whatever they want to be known as. This is for statistical reasons in the death certificate. So pick one job that they had, maybe what they did the longest, what they were the proudest of, and use that title, occupation, and industry. But for the obituary, we can name as many or as much as you want in any way that you want to include everything. Education is always asked about on the death certificate. It does not have to go in the obituary. That's up to each family if they want to mention it or not. Depending on the generation, there's a lot of people that didn't go past 8th grade. So the death certificate has categories of education that we can pick. I believe it's 8th grade or less, some high school, no diploma, high school graduate or GED, some college or certificate, and then the degrees, all the way up to, I believe, PhD or doctorate. So you pick one of those, the highest level achieved, and that's the category we pick. And again, it's up to you. If you want, in the obituary, you can name all the schools they went to and what years they graduated, what actual degrees they got. That's all up to you. But in the death certificate, they only need the category of highest level achieved. Veteran. If your loved one was a veteran, the death certificate's going to need some of their veteran information entered. And it's up to you how and how much and what to put in the obituary. Technically, whether they're peacetime or wartime veteran goes by their dates served. If they served, regardless of where they served in this country or where the war was or not, if it was during the time of a war, they're considered a veteran of that war in the entry of the system. So the death certificate usually wants information like war or peacetime, service number, date of entry. They usually don't need the place, date of discharge, branch of service and their highest rank achieved. And then in the obituary, you can add or say it however you want. Sometimes they like to mention which war, which unit they were in, maybe even the medals that they have. And if you have veterans in your family, all that you need to find all this information and to get all of the things they need for military funerals is their discharge papers. That is imperative. You need their, for most branches, it's called a DD 214. For National Guard, it's, I believe, NGB 22. I don't know if there's another name for it for the reserves, but you need that discharge paper. There's the certificate, but there's also the information side. That's the side we need. That is what gets a veteran the flag that they're entitled to, which we get from the post office. And that is also all that we need to apply for military honors, which can be rendered at the funeral home, at the cemetery, outside the church if you're not going to a cemetery. Military honors are very, very flexible to your needs and absolutely beautiful. And then clubs, hobbies, interests, memberships, that's more for the obituary, things that you want to bullet point. Like they were in this bowling league for 20 years. They were part of this prayer service with the Holy Rosary Society, like anything that was important to them or that would help with recognition, because some of these memberships or organizations might still be around and they might want to come and be delegations at the funeral. So that's the bulk of the important vital information that we get. Other than that, we need to select an informant. Informant is like the person that is most likely like the main point person that is planning the funeral, giving us all of the information. That person also gets named on the death certificate to show that like we got the information we're typing in on their behalf from this person. They are the informant. Doesn't always have to be the next of kin. Sometimes the next of kin is the wife and she's also in a nursing home. So a lot of times the informant is the son or the daughter. On the back side is important information for us and more for the obituary. This is where we want all the family members, all the children's names and their spouses and where they live. We want all the siblings' names, whether they're living or past, and grandchildren's names, great-grandchildren's names. We usually say general, like several nieces and nephews, because you just never know. You want to cover everybody. It also has a section for us to fill out cemetery information, which is very good for us to have, because a lot of times we have to revisit old files to look up like, oh, I want him to be buried with his grandparents. You did the funeral in the 70s. We are able to access which cemetery, which section, which lot, and all the information. We can usually tell from the card if there's any empty graves or any room. So that's pretty much the info portion of an arrangement, and sometimes can take a decent amount of time. And then we talk about what is the logistic, what is the funeral that we want to have. That's when we decide, we help the family communicate about whether they want burial or cremation, whether we want a service, what type of service, what parts are private, what parts are public. There are so many options. So the first thing I want to say is that burial and cremation are different types of disposition. That's all that they are. They are completely separate from service. So there are very different variations when it comes to service. Every funeral home in the country is mandated and regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. We all have general price lists that are very similar. I don't know if you've looked at different funeral homes, but you'll notice a lot of the terms are the same, and that is by design because of the Federal Trade Commission. And in a nutshell, the reason they did that, I believe in the 70s, I can't remember when it started, was historically funerals were kind of packaged and all based off the casket, and everything was kind of bundled together. But funeral business weren't able to, educate easily their clients and their consumers on the itemization of that. And sometimes consumers were getting things that they didn't need or didn't want and to pick and choose. So the FTC regulated, among the many things, that the GPL has to show itemized services and items completely separate, so that when you do package, you can also compare to all the breakdown of options and prices to ensure that consumers get what they want and are not being forced to pay for things that they don't want. So it's kind of a great thing. So ever since then, some funeral homes still choose to package services, some funeral homes don't. Me and my partners here in Taunton, we decided our mission statement is mostly about transparency, being accessible, and being completely adaptive. So for us, it works better not to have packages. Here's our GPL. Here's the itemized prices. You don't want this. You want that. You don't want this. It's straightforward. There's no bundling or hidden smoke and mirrors or math to figure out. And it just kind of works better that way for us. But that being said, there are different collections of these itemized prices that make up different types of services, right? When people think of a traditional service, and what we kind of call a traditional service, is people having a wake the evening before the funeral. So the average is 3 hours, and the hours that we charge for visitation are the public hours. We always include an extra private hour for the family to come, just them before the public arrives, so they can, have their time. If there's children that need to come, they know they have a full hour. It's also a good time to set things up and to kind of, get your bearings. So you can choose to have a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, sometimes 4 or 5. It all depends. It's up to every family and their preferences. Some families choose to forgo the night before visitation altogether and do everything all in one day. So the day of the funeral, we charge what's called a funeral ceremony charge. And that's one charge where it encompasses that whole day, where we have staff and facilities covering for meeting at the funeral home, having a short visitation in the morning, and it allows our staff time to organize the procession and parking of the cars, because we always give families like a car list, so that you're able to tell us. Not everyone uses limos anymore. It's just one of those added expenses that some people justify and want, and some people don't see the need for, to the point where we don't own limos anymore. It just didn't justify purchasing more limos when we did the math, and I think only 7% of families last year chose a limo. So instead, we want to make sure that we have the closest family members like right behind the hearse. So it gives family time our staff time to set up the procession. It also gives people time to talk to each other in case they couldn't come the night before, or if there wasn't a wake the night before, there's like a visitation period. And then we always, always, always have everyone go out to the cars first and leave the closest family last, because we want closest family to have their private time before the casket is closed. We usually incorporate the family in the closing of the casket, laying the blanket, placing flowers in the casket. Sometimes they bring personal items that they want to put in the casket that they didn't necessarily want displayed. So we make this a very intimate and private time, and we never rush it. We like to favor this private time with the family before we close the casket with them. And then we process either to the church, or if the funeral home had the service in the funeral home, we're processing directly to the cemetery. Or if we're processing to the church, then we process to the cemetery afterwards. So that's all funeral ceremony when it comes to facility and staff charges. So my point with the difference between burial and cremation is where we end up. So sometimes people, when they want cremation, first we need to know what, if any, type of services do they want, because it's very different. And sometimes people don't know that they have the option of having a wake and a service, or just a wake and then the cremation. And then after we get the ashes back, sometimes that's when people want to have the service. It all depends how the family wants to structure it. One good example I always give is for my aunt's funeral, which is another show that I'll be doing about, is when my aunt Anna died. We knew she wanted to be cremated, and what we did was we had a wake with her in a wooden casket for cremation, and it was an invite-only private wake. So it was like the closest circle of family and friends. It was more informal, and it was because she had quite the illness, and we all knew that it wasn't the type of viewing that she would have appreciated everyone coming to. And it was very intimate, and it helped us all kind of be together and see her and do what we needed to do for grieving her. And then the cremation happened. And then when we got the ashes back, then we planned to have the public service that was going to be totally hippie and like how she wanted, upbeat, with music, with humorous eulogies, with knitted flowers, and her ashes. And what was kind of nice about it too was by then, like, we had all, especially her husband and her son, we had been out of that initial like couple of days after her death, that fog and that heaviness that we're all in. We were able to process and have our closer private wake. And by the time we had the public service, the time helped. And it helped everyone be in the right mindset to really honor her the way she wanted to be. So we like to let families know that there are so many variables, so many different ways to do this. And sometimes even people want to have their body go into church, and then have a cremation. And in that case, we can do all of the same things, and it can have the procession, it can have the visitation in the morning, and then we all drive to church and have the full Catholic Mass with her body in church. And then what happens is at the end of Mass, the funeral director would get up and announce and thank everyone for coming, just like we do at the cemetery, and either invite them to a repast or collation where the family is inviting them to, or we would just thank them for coming and let them know this is the end of the services. Because then we would, take her to the crematory, and instead of everyone going to a cemetery. Sometimes families want to have the cremation right away and then have all of the service in one day after the cremation when we have the ashes, because they intend to have the ashes buried. And they would also like the ashes in church and to have a mass. So this way we're able to do all of that in one day, and it can be the same structure, that funeral ceremony structure where everyone comes to the funeral home in the morning. We set up the procession. There's a visitation period with the urn where everyone can talk to the family. And then we process to church for the mass. And then we process to the cemetery for the burial of the ashes committal. And then that concludes the funeral ceremony for that day. So these are all the type of options that we sit down and we try to figure out. What are the logistics? Once we know the logistics, then we're able to tell them, okay, this is the church that you chose. These are the requests. Would you like any, family participation? We provide them with, church readings, all the options for, some churches allow 2 or 3 people to bring up the gifts, the first reading, the second reading, sometimes the responsorial. Here's a list of Catholic church songs that you can pick from. Usually you select 4. Depending on the church, sometimes they have different protocols. We communicate all of those to give that to the church on behalf of the family. And we would coordinate the scheduling of everything, usually around the church first. We need to make sure the church is available for the day that they want. And then we have to make sure the cemetery works out for that day and the opening has enough time. And it's a lot of, what does the family want? Okay, let's coordinate and call everybody. We want to make it so the family only has to meet with us and we literally handle everything else. We want to take as much off their hands as possible. We also at this meeting find out, like, when it comes to funding, sometimes they have insurance. We have an amazing company we work with that advances so that we can accept insurance policies as payment. And what's great is they pay us right away so we can handle the funeral, and they also handle the family's claim portion. So it saves them from all of that extra paperwork separately, and extra phone calls they have to make, and extra tasks they have to do after the death occurs. We also can help the family figure out how many death certificates they're going to need and try to explain to them how Social Security works. So a lot of it is the planning and the logistics. And then there's a whole section that's kind of advisement on, here's the timeline, here's what to expect, here's what you need to worry about, here's what you don't right now. We try to give people checklists and reminders. And obviously we fill out a contract so they know at that meeting exactly what the items are that they're selecting. They get our price list. We also have what's called Memorial Products, which is our beautiful company we work with in Rhode Island. That their graphic design team, they're like angels and magicians. I could tell them this woman loved beekeeping, BMWs, and margaritas, and they would make the entire theme visually elegant, incorporating all of that. I can send them a picture that is like the woman's favorite picture of herself, but it has like a rip across the side. They can totally fix that. They're just absolute magicians. So everything from the register book and the prayer cards and the thank you cards and the bookmark obituary cards, everything's custom made for every family. And it just adds an enhancement of personalization. And in my opinion, everything that can be personalized just adds to the entire meaningful goodbye. And that's why we do what we do. So sometimes the best part of our job is when we reveal these products and the family just, it's something that means something to them, that they want to share, that they want to keep, and it's an added healing and nostalgia for them. The same thing with slideshows. If they want a slideshow, I just showed you some of my grandmothers. I've made countless amount of slideshows, and the slideshows for my family members, like there's so many people I've lost that my kids were really young for. And because we have these slideshows to keep rewatching when we want to, like it's been like a touchstone to keep my family and my kids like knowing these family members they might have forgot, and access to all of these memories. So slideshows are great because our website is with this wonderful company called Tukios, and they're amazing. They're based out of Utah. They themselves answer the phone 24/7 if we need help. They're the best software, the most like user friendly, but also technologically savvy, like the software of my dreams. We're able to make slideshows that are cinematic, like memory gifts for people. And there's always an effect, like the funeral itself is a meaningful goodbye and something beautiful. But then sometimes families are in such a fog, it's such a blur, everything's appreciated and everything is meaningful, but not always digested. And the slideshow is one of those tools that can be redigested whenever the family needs it. And it also stays on the obituary page online so that family that couldn't come here can see it. Friends, that find out about it and can't come to the service, they can see all these memories, and it can be viewed and easily shared. And they're absolutely beautiful. And I'm so happy that slideshows and tributes exist. And there's something magic about every single one that's made. Oh, Mom is here. This is my mother. This is Philomena Silva, who Mom, we just put you on a stage. Here we go. I was showing them your picture from your wedding. This was a sunset, like evening wedding at the church, candlelit, 1977. So beautiful. But yeah, that's my mom. That's Philomena Silva. So glad you're watching. Yay. Now I don't know how to. Okay, there we go. Yay, Mom, you're here. Oh, and Edie. I don't know if Mom, I don't know if you remember Edie Lamont Sylvia, but she knows you. You know her. We've done theater together, her daughter and me. So many connections. But yeah, Filmena Maria has entered the chat. Say hello to my mom. Oh, she's on watching from Facebook. I'll show her how to navigate YouTube so that she can be in the chat with all of you guys. That's so awesome. Yay, Filomena Maria is here. I'll show her how to read all the comments. But yeah, so that's like the biggest gist of the arrangement. We also decide about obituary. We usually give the family the options of like, do you want to pay to put it in the paper? Do you want to just do it online? And we let them know that usually what we like to do is we gather all the information that we have, and we ask them if there's any other things they can think of in this moment that you want to make it to the obituary. And sometimes they're just too overloaded to think about it. So what we like to do is send an email with a draft of what we have, so that then they can look at it and either add or change. Like, we're not forcing families with a blank page to start from nowhere. And a lot of times families come back and make their additions and their changes, and it leads to some beautiful narratives. um I love seeing obituaries being put together. We also figure out logistics around charities and stuff. And this is a notion too, where what I like to explain is, if nothing is put in the obituary in terms of preferences about flowers or charities, that means it's a free for all. Like, whatever you want to do for this family, they're open to it. Flowers, send food to the house, you know, charity, whatever you want, mass cards, we're open. But if you have like a hard preference, you might want to mention something like, in lieu of flowers is a gentle term. That's meaning like, flowers are okay, but if you would like another option, here are some charities that maybe are meaningful to the family or to the person that passed away. And here's some guidance on that. Sometimes too, that makes it a little easier for the family, because what you got to remember is, when it's a free for all and everyone's making donations to all these different charities, some charities are better than others at coming back and letting the family know that these donations were made in their memory. And sometimes people that make the donations don't always remember to let the family know, so that they can be thanked. So sometimes when there is guidance, even if it's multiple, at least the family knows that they're going to be getting correspondence from one or two or three charities. The other benefit is, if they're larger charities and in a national charity database, our wonderful website connects with most of these charities. So we can connect the charities that they want, and people right from the obituary can click right in. And not only can they make the donation, but it can be connected right to the family's information. So it's already making a step easier, grouping these donations for the charity, so that the charity can easily get back to the family with the list of who has donated, or the family can see who has donated by whoever doesn't check off anonymous on that option. The other nice thing that we talk about is like the prayer or the poem or the song lyrics that they want on the memorial cards. Memorial cards are like the small cards that are given out at the funeral. And when I was a kid, I just wondered what people did with them sometimes. Like, I would work wakes or be at wakes, and I'd always see someone like looking both ways, thinking no one's looking, and they take like a whole stack of them. And I remember in my silly mind thinking that there must be like some Portuguese poker game where they're playing cards. And they're like, I'll raise you 2 Marias for 3 Josés. Like, or there's like a collection of cards, like baseball cards. And then I'd see people come to services with their Bibles, and they'd have tons of prayer cards stacked in. Like, some people just collect them from every, service of every friend, every relative. I know I've been to houses where they have them like lining their mirrors. So never underestimate the power of having something for people to take with them. For my Aunt Anna, everyone got a knitted flower that was pinned. So everyone was wearing like a knitted flower in her honor. Plus, we had prayer cards. Sometimes people bring like recipe cards, like they'll scan her actual recipe so everyone can take her recipes. I love when elements like this are added, and in the midst of filling out this card is usually when the good funeral directors are buzzing in the back of their mind on elements that can be added to the funeral based on getting to know this person's personality, the things they love to do, and incorporating that into the services. So this process is probably the most important process, even also more important than the logistics itself. This is where the real work of putting everything together comes into play. So you have logistics, and then you have funding, and that's where we help figure out, all of the plans that the family has for funding. And we present the price list, and we iron everything down. We give the checklist. We give the timeline. We like people to leave with paper in their hand saying like, this is what to focus on first. We need the clothing. Sometimes people bring the clothing they want the person to wear to the arrangement. Sometimes they just don't have that gathered. So we let them know, like, we need this like tomorrow or the next day. What else? Even if there's not a viewing, like sometimes people are cremated and they're not intending to be viewed, you can also bring clothing or anything that you sentimentally just want them to have with them for the cremation. Anything that's with them, like I've said in other videos, nobody gets cremated without being in a container. At the minimum, it's called an alternative container, which is a pine bottom and a cardboard top. Or you can purchase a wooden casket for viewing and cremation. Or we also have a rental casket where it's a metal exterior that opens up so that what you're purchasing is the liner that goes inside that your loved one is in. And that becomes the alternative container that gets removed and they are cremated in. So that means anything you place with them is going to go with them through the cremation. The only thing restricted is you cannot send anything through a cremation that has a battery. We always need to know if someone has a pacemaker, that has to be removed. Any device that has a battery needs to be removed. Sometimes I've had a couple men, that have passed and their family wants them holding the remote. Totally fine. We just got to remove the battery. Yeah, everything else is pretty much okay to go through with. But it's nice. Sometimes people want like a letter, or you just never know. You just never know. I've had people say they want some illicit materials to see what would happen to the staff if that all gets heated up. And I don't think I've heard anything come of that. But someday I've planted the seed and I'm hoping to do a tour of the wonderful crematory that my family has done business with for decades, in Attleboro, Woodlawn, North Purchase. And I would love to do a tour and kind of show you what happens there and how amazing the staff is and what the procedure is, because there are so many assumptions out there. Sadly, we're in an industry where if something's on the news about the funeral industry, it's like the 1 out of 10,000 funeral homes that is bad. And that's what gets highlighted, not the informational, educational, important, and good and amazing things that funeral directors do. So that's part of also why we all need to get out here and talk and educate and share all this stuff. So what else happens at an arrangement? We also help advise about if the family wants to do something after the funeral and about flowers. So kind of ties into in lieu of flowers. In lieu of flowers is gentle, but sometimes people are like, I absolutely do not want flowers. That's when you want to use words like, please omit flowers. Instead, donations made in their memory to blah, blah, blah would be greatly appreciated. Sometimes the family's like allergic to flowers and there literally can't be flowers. That can be conveyed in the obituaries so that people know. And our wonderful website lets us turn off features so that it doesn't make it easy for people to just, knee jerk. Sometimes people just think flowers. Someone died, send flowers. So we're able to control a lot of our websites. What else? Oh, you can put flower preferences in the obituary too. We had a woman, God, it was, I don't even know how long ago, but her favorite flower was sunflowers. So we put in the obituary that sunflowers were her favorite flowers and we would love to see, sunflowers at her funeral. So many flowers were ordered and sent that it caused like a sunflower emergency shortage. Like all the florists in the area were like, oh my God, we're all out of sunflowers. Like people were like going all over the place trying to get sunflowers. And this funeral home was full of gorgeous sunflowers for this woman. It was absolutely beautiful. So don't ever hesitate. Now that obituaries are not so formatted, they can say and include anything that you want, short of like swearing or, harassing people. So yeah, don't ever hesitate to bring anything up. Again, it's important to feel comfortable with the person that is helping you arrange these things, whether you're having services or not. This is still something that is a tough thing to navigate. Lastly, the memorial or repast, so many words for it. Funeral reception, collation, repast, so many words. So this is what happens at the end of the services. Sometimes if it's a regular funeral, like during the day that ends like early afternoon, this would be where they go after the cemetery or after the church concludes. Sometimes if it's just a funeral home service and maybe it's in the evening, it might be a dinner situation. So a lot of that logistic depicts what options they have and how much time they have from now until that date. So we always keep a list and information about all the options in the area based on where they are. And pretty much you can choose between restaurants and function halls or church halls. Sometimes halls mean that you're spending a low cost to rent the hall, but then you need to bring in a caterer. Sometimes both are included depending where you're at. Some restaurants have more or less accommodation depending on how much space they have and their schedule. Some restaurants people assume they can't go to because they're, say, closed on Mondays. But you'd be surprised to know that some of these restaurants, even though they're closed to the public on Mondays, they do open for specifically funeral receptions. So it's always good to ask the funeral director, what they recommend in the area. We kind of give you a list. The basic guidelines are, in my opinion, if it's a restaurant, go buffet. You want to avoid a plated situation unless it's private and you know exactly how many people are going to be there. Because here's the thing, when you book it, whatever starting count or minimum you have to give them, you're going to be held to that. And then the rest is kind of a variable. And it's never like an exact science. So sometimes there's a wake the night before and we're able to ask people as they arrive, are you going to be joining the family for the reception tomorrow at so-and-so? And they say yes or no as they're coming in, and we note that number, and then we get a count again in the morning. What people don't realize is that's never perfectly accurate for various reasons. Sometimes people are embarrassed to say no, so they say yes, even though they might not be coming. Sometimes things change. They say yes, and then their kid's sick that night, and they're not coming. Or sometimes people can't make it to the wake the night before. They're going to show up in the morning, but they're going to meet in church. We're not going to get to count them and their family. You just never know. So we never actually, at least our funeral home, we never actually give like an exact count. We always kind of knock off a couple or like 5% to try to like account for that error, because we know that what helps the restaurants is to have a heads up if it's going to be more than they planned, so they can have more tables and if needed prepare more food. What's harder is when you have a starting count that is more than what you can guarantee. It's harder for them to go downsize, and they're usually not able to charge you less because they've already prepared that much food or that much staff or put you in the bigger room. So you always want to start with the count that is like rain, blizzard, firestorm, no matter what. These are the people in this deceased life that are going to be here no matter what. Like that is the count that you give, literally. You don't go higher than that. And if the place has a minimum and it's 25 people and you think your ride or dies are around that number, then start with that number and work from there. So yes, easier to build up than to delete. Hello, Marcus. Marcus is a friend since God. I was trying to think I think it's CCD. I think CCD, like first grade, second grade, us and the Portuguese kids, who I also need to reach out to. I want to have a Portuguese kid episode where we talk about all things Portuguese traditions and funerals and things that happen. So you're on notice, Brian and Derek and Vanessa. I would love to have you all on here in this world because they're wonderful. I'm good, Marcus. How are you? And what I also love about Marcus is we went to school together all through high school. I only would see him at funerals here and there. And now it turns out his son is an amazing theater guy. And my daughter was in a play with him last summer. So that's how we got to reconnect. And I got to meet his awesome wife. So yeah, I love that the theater bug is being shared all around generationally. Late but here now. Well, welcome, Kath. Never late. What's great is there's a replay, and I love everyone on the replay crew. just a little bit of housekeeping. I want to remind everyone, if you can, to come into the channel on YouTube and subscribe. It's completely free, and it helps the algorithm. It helps me get where I'm hoping to go, and it helps share the word. It helps the channel get put out to other people that are in the YouTube world. I'm still adding my shorts as we go. So yeah, I'm working on that. And if you come to my channel, there's some things that I've organized there for you guys. I have about half of my short videos uploaded as shorts and some regular videos. Those are all the ones that I've been doing, you know, on my funeral home page and TikTok page for a while. They're like short, more topic sensitive, like chapters, little chunks of information. I've also made playlists trying to condense those or collect some of those shorts into like certain topics. So I had fun doing that. And I've also added a playlist called Funeral Content I Love, because I don't know how YouTube works with like copywriting, and I'm always nervous about it. And there's tons of stuff I'd love to share. Like there's this show called Dying for Sex. It's on Hulu, if anyone has watched it, with the amazing Michelle Williams and Jennifer Slate, who I found out lives in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. This show is everything. I mean, there's definitely a lot of sex, but it's the best show I've ever seen, depicting so many elements of like end of life that it's insane. It's like relationship dynamics, friendship through the process of like hospice and cancer and shutting down. And this hospice nurse named Amy in Dying for Sex gives an explanation of what the body goes through as the body dies. And it is the best, most incredible explanation I've ever heard. It's just the perfect scene, and I have that in the funeral content I love. I try to add like funerals that I've seen in TV shows and movies that have just gutted me. Like, I don't know if anyone watched Sons of Anarchy, but when Opie died, oh, that funeral, like I still think of it. The glasses scene from My Girl. Sometimes I come across incredible eulogies, sometimes of celebrities, but also of not celebrities. There's 2 eulogies I added given by 2 different brothers for when their father died, and they're just Oscar worthy eulogies. Like, holy, you need to watch these eulogies. Watch the first one, and then the one that says the younger brother, watch that second. But what's great is like I made a comment like gushing over this eulogy, and he commented back, and I said what I do. His mother was a funeral director. So God, what a small world. So yeah, Sons of Anarchy, so good. It's like literally Shakespearean level writing, that show. I need to rewatch it. I haven't rewatched it in a while. So many short references. That's me, always with the short references. When I went to the meet and greet for Jess Machado's show, she had a meet and greet for all the bunnies and the besties. It was so cool having people be like, "No way, I thought you'd be taller." Like, just knowing that people imagined me tall was like such a weird dynamic. It was amazing. Yeah, so as I go, I'm going to keep adding things there. Also, in my FuneraLady channel like profile, I have my Spotify playlist there, and that is called FuneraLady Heart Songs. You can also search it on Spotify. What that is every time I make a slideshow for a family and they have me add songs, I add those songs to this playlist. And I also add songs to this playlist that I find in my life that I feel are beautiful tribute songs, and it just keeps growing. Another thing I want to say about slideshows is one way that slideshows kind of help families is in the creation of them. Like Tukios, again, best company ever. They have the ability that like I can generate an upload link. So I can send out this upload link to anyone in the family. Like maybe there's family that lives all over the country. They can all receive a link and they can all upload photos and videos directly to me, and they can all contribute to the slideshow, which is beautiful. Also, I love to tell families, like, have every close family member contribute a song, because it might be shocking and beautiful to find out and to task everyone with a song that is meaningful for them when they think about that person. And I don't know, most people I know have a song that connects them to almost every person in their life. I mean, am I wrong? I just I just think of the days when, like, remember when we used to download and customize ringtones for all our friends? I had Mamma Mia for my mom. I had Like a Rolling Stone from Bob Dylan for my dad. I had this song North American for my husband, which was used for this like crazy show about, I don't know, it's like a period show. I can't remember the name of it, but it's on Apple TV. I just had all these songs for everybody. Can I Kick It was for Chicky. Yeah. Oh, my sister had a song. It was Mana Chao, because she came back from Brazil with this amazing song category. What is this? That's something. When I think back about when my dad passed, 24 years now, I can't believe it. I wish I had the courage to get up to give a thank you, Dad, kind of memoriam at the end of the mass, but things were all so fast. Doesn't mean you still can't. I invite you anytime you want to come up here and give a eulogy. That is my dream, to have people come up here and give eulogies or just talk about the people that died, whether it was a week ago or 30 years ago. So you have an open invite, my friend. Speaking of which, before I go, I'm going to put up the link in case anyone wants to pop on, ask a question, give a eulogy, sing a song, whatever you want to do, you are welcome. So yeah, if anyone wants to come up and chat, you just let me know. Let me remove all this stuff so I can see. But I am just, I don't know, I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for all of you and everyone that has reached out, all of the support. I'm thankful for this platform, this program. I mean, being on the radio was absolutely amazing. But it was so like structured and like breaking for commercials. And I remember like the production guy would always be like, 3 minutes, 1 minute. And I loved everyone at WSAR that I worked with. It was wonderful. But it was always like a split mind. Like I had the content and then I had to like think. But the biggest thing I miss about the radio was taking calls and getting to chat with people. And I'm so happy that YouTube gives me freedom. I can go as long or as short as I want. And I can let people just hop up and chat with me. And don't ever feel like you have to turn on your camera. You can completely keep your camera off and just keep it audio. Hey, Heather, the first song my dad and stepmother ever danced to was Another One Bites the Dust. Not sure it's appropriate, but it makes me laugh. I don't think that can or should be played at a funeral, but true. You would not believe how many funerals that has been played at. I believe it might be in my list. I might not have added it. Another, there's some good songs that like I would have never thought to be tribute songs. Spirit in the Sky is really good. I don't know if anyone's heard the band Flogging Molly, but there's a song called If I Ever Leave This World Alive. Oh, it's epic. I also wanted to give you another Death Care World content creator to check out and follow, and that is 6 Feet Over. She is wonderful. She is a funeral director in Oklahoma. She's absolutely gorgeous, has the best accent, and she hops on and she tells amazing stories about her experiences. She also like found or came across like a box of turn of the century obituaries that she reads that are incredible. She also brings up like really great historical stories and lore that she talks about. A lot of great educational stuff. Like she just every video is great. So definitely check out 6 Feet Over. She was highlighted in People magazine, which is amazing. Yeah, I think I follow her on TikTok, but I think she's on Instagram too. And I'm hoping to have her come on the show because I would love to chat with her. We've talked privately a couple of times, and I would love to have her on because it's so amazing when you get to meet funeral directors. I love going to seminars and conferences because of connecting with funeral directors from different parts of the country or the world and just learning how different things are done, like in different areas, different traditions, different cultures, different state rules. Yeah, it's just wild. So I'd love to connect with her. I want to hear her why, like why she became a funeral director. Every funeral director has a story, and I want to share those all with you. We are working on a Saturday evening mediumship night. So we are going to be doing that. We're looking at dates in May, but now that I'm having this surgery, I just want to make sure I get that surgery date before I plan anything. But I do believe we're going to figure out how many we can hold in the facility, and I think it's going to be a ticketed event. We'll make like an Eventbrite for it, because I want to compensate Megan, and I want to also provide some like refreshments and snacks and make sure that it's a limited amount of people so that we have just the right amount of people and not so overcrowded that it's too many or that we can't seat everyone and have everyone see and hear Megan. But we might also include some kind of virtual setup too. Yay. I hope that you can come, Heather. It'd be awesome. I have a bunch of people that want to come. The last thing I want you all to know, for anyone that's local to the Taunton area in any way, most Mondays I have what I call a knit or not group, and it's both with K's, like knit or KNOT, meaning like you can knit, you cannot. We kind of just sit around and we talk and we craft. Some women knit, some women crochet. We have a woman that does needle felting. I don't know if you've seen what needle felting is. It's really cool. It's like taking raw wool, like just bunches of raw wool, and you form them kind of like Play-Doh, like sculpture into shapes, and then you take a needle, and by how much that you pierce the ball of wool with needle, you shape the shape, and then you can connect other pieces to it. And this woman's making like a series of farm animals out of a bunch of raw wool, and you can like layer different colors. And I think she's working on a cow and a horse. It's so cool. We had another woman show up with a whole kit and a light, and it was diamond painting. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like a sheet of adhesive, and it's an image, and it has like a graph with numbers, and you stick little tiny like diamond looking pieces to the spots they go into, and it makes this beautiful design. So she had that whole setup. We have a woman that comes in colors. So yeah, anything you want to do, or just sit and gab with a bunch of ladies that are knitting and doing random weird things, you're always welcome. So it's most Mondays from 5 to 7 at the Starbucks on Route 44 in Rainham. And we always post the flyer on the Silva Funeral Home page on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow Silva Funeral Home. And I usually share it to my page, and I usually forget. But I know that we're doing every Monday in March, and that the only Monday I'm not doing it in April is the Monday of school break. So I'm doing every Monday in April except for the 20th. So yeah, I hope to see and meet you guys and hang out. And men are welcome too. It's not just female only. The Starbucks is so accommodating. There's plenty of seating, lots of great stuff to eat and drink. Awesome. You know someone that does that. I had never seen it before. It's so cool. Crafting is awesome. So while we're talking about knitting, I'll show you what is Amy knitting right now. I am knitting a sweater that I have been knitting for a year. I am not a fast knitter. This amazing woman that comes to the group named Riley, she is like the fastest knitter I've ever seen besides my aunt. I think she's made 4 sweaters in the like 2 or 3 months that we've been meeting. So this is going to be a sleeve. I'm almost done with the first sleeve of my sweater. And I picked this sweater, see, because it's like moss green. And I love the pattern. And it's like soft, cozy yarn. And I'm obsessed with it. And the reason I picked the sweater is because it's a cardigan that has no buttonholes. So I pick projects based on minimal finishing. So I only have to sew like here and around the sleeves, and then it's just knitting around the band. And it's just an open, cozy sweater, and I'm so excited for it. But I'm also a Gemini, so I'm dying to finish it, and I refuse to start another project until I finish it. But I already have my next 2 projects ready to go and the yarn purchased, and I'm making a multicolored shawl because I want to work with color now. And then after that, I found a poncho that I want to make that is so cool. So yeah, hopefully I will finish all these things someday. And thank you, Heather, for sharing Amy's Knit or Not, Mondays 5 to 7 at Starbucks in Rainham, Route 44. Yes. So I guess that is all, unless anyone has any questions. What is this? Is that a question? So when you talk about music at funerals, that's one that means something to me. Yeah, music at funerals is it's so important because you think about it like somebody in any way, there's always a connection to music. Hardly anyone has like no connection to music. In our area, there's a Portuguese song called Pescador, and it's my favorite, most beautiful funeral song. When I was growing up, not only did I hear it in church and all the women would sing, especially Zomira, like just so loud and good. But I would hear them practicing at Zolmira's house at the back of our property, like when I'd be outside. And I'd always happen to hear them working on that song. Like that song is just my whole life. It's been my favorite, most beautiful Portuguese song. And I thought it was a Portuguese song my whole life. I found out it also is in English. It's like fisherman something. Like, Lord, I am here by the seashore. And I really don't like it in English. It was the first time I had like bonded with a Portuguese song. And then I heard it in English and I was like, it's just not as good. But then there are bangers. Like there are bangers that are songs that can be sang both in Portuguese and in English, like How Great Thou Art. The really good singers and organists in our area, they can alternate verses and choruses between Portuguese and English, and it's absolutely beautiful. Oh, Noodles. Oh, that is such a good song. Noodles said, my song will be Fast Car by Tracy Chapman. So good. What a song. Hi, Noodle Mama. Noodle is my friend. Yeah, that song is so good. And like, I don't know, that song is like taken different meaning throughout my life too. Cause I don't know. It like takes me back to the 90s, but then it takes me back to like different parts of my life where it's like hit in different ways. It's one of those songs. Kind of like my Tori Amos, who has a new album coming out May 1st. Tori, my queen. Oh, I cannot wait. So yeah, so I think that is everything I wanted to talk about today. And I definitely went longer than I wanted to. So I apologize if anyone didn't like it being this long. But please, please reach out with any questions anytime. Please remember to share and subscribe and hit the like button. All these things help the algorithm angels out there. And thank you all for watching. I will keep coming back every week and talking about different stuff. And thank you, my spirits, for being here. Thank you, Kelly. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Heather. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate every single one of you. And just remember, keep living your best life and making your best content for your most meaningful goodbye. Keep adding to that amazing amazing lists that your family will be putting together someday. So yeah. And always think of jokes you want to play on your family, please. Please. I love when people incorporate jokes for their family at their funerals. Those make me the happiest. Love you guys too. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ben Rosa. Thank you, Edie. You guys all have a great night and a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Since we've all formed this partnership and we've agreed on just about everything, and we've always talked about everything. We want to keep it homey. We don't want this big hall. We want to keep it family owned.
The last 3 years have just gone by so fast, and it is true that the partnership that we have has been so amazing, and I don't look at it so much as a partnership, but more as a friendship, which everyone views that of the three of us.
I love how real we are. I think part of what makes us awesome is we come from so many different backgrounds in the industry, different types of businesses, different lifestyles, different somewhat ages. I'm only slightly younger. But we're able to communicate and structure our business around the things that we love and want to improve on from what we've actually been through. What works? What do we love about what we do? And what do we think can be better?
I really love helping people. I like making the friendships with the families, especially the newer families that are coming to us and totally putting their trust in us. And I mean, I'm very open with them and showing them everything and letting them make all of their decisions.
We are able to completely cater everything we do to the needs of every family because they're all so different.
Every family that I meet with, I try to find out about their loved one and try to personalize each moment, each celebration of that person's life, and it means so much to me for them to tell me about their loved one.
I think we read people amazingly.
I had a family the other day, and it came time to select the casket, and I started off right at the bottom, and I said, I'm going to show you why caskets go up. And I actually talked them down a tier, and they were looking at me like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. The funeral homes are, in their perspective, is supposed to be making a lot of money and pushing you into things. They felt so comfortable, and I was comfortable too.
We love what we do our best job, and we price to reflect that. And the people, it's up to them, and they've shown that they appreciate it.
We had a family that came in, and they were big animal lovers. And we had a picture of Nissa on the wall, our comfort dog. And they said, oh my God, what a beautiful dog. And the husband, you could see, needed cheering up. I said, would you like to meet Nissa? I got you. Here comes Nissa. And the husband was hugging her, and Nissa was licking him, and they thought it was great. Now, you couldn't do that with every family, but they just
but at that moment,
was great.
It was the right moment.
All the funeral homes in this area are good, professional, and but I wouldn't have been able to do that working for another funeral home.
When society doesn't talk about funerals and grief and death as much as other industries, it makes our consumers, by default, expect what they assume is the right way.
Right.
So when
So
we're
it's like this
offering
cycle
them something
of
else,
holding everybody back.
and we cry with them, and we laugh with them, and we can be silly with them, we can be serious with them.
There is no judgment in this time. You and your family are grieving, and everybody grieves differently. Every family is different. How can people expect things to go a certain way?
People sometimes don't realize that when they've lost a loved one at 2 o'clock in the morning, we were with them, and then we're meeting it with them the next day, but it doesn't end for us like it doesn't end for them. And it's all on us to make everything okay for them.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss. We take everything home with us, the
Yes.
emotions, the feelings. We can't just turn it off. And there's nights you lay in bed and you can't turn it off.
If the clergy is looking the way we conduct the funerals, the way we handle people, and recommending us, that is the best feeling in the world.
I think we've inspired the families that we've helped this year to embrace the more intimate and private elements of these services. I remember families saying, I didn't realize how meaningful this could be. Like the super informal conversations. It's the one thing, I would say, out of what happened with COVID that I hope continues. And I'm proud of us.
Well, absolutely.